Imprisonment. Reneging on our promise, Mom whisked me out of Eric's house and into her car. She drove full speed to her heavily pre-planned resolution for me. I had no idea what was going on until we drove up to the concrete psychiatric hospital. You've got to be kidding me. Before I knew it, I was dropped off and unnecessarily locked up in a rehabilitation center for runaway and drug-addicted teens. I had never tried drugs, was not sexually promiscuous, was a straight-A student, and ran on the varsity track team. I turned extreme teenager later. I certainly had not run away, but apparently none of that mattered. This place was demeaning, degrading, and worse than much of what I had already experienced. Every day, psychologists attempted to dissect me with their psychobabble and esoteric language as if they desired any real plausibility. Their true craving seemed only monetary. The use of these psychologists, not to berate them, I am a psychology major, implies that the speaker or writer lacks the experience and understanding necessary for the proper use of psychological terms. They exposed a 16-year-old healthy teenager who was above suspicion to methods of psychological manipulation. Blunt tools of force caused me to surrender temporarily. Rorschach shapes mugged my personal rights. Those taking advantage of petty privileges, like stepping outdoors for 15 minutes, liberties were threatened with removal. I was in prison and had committed no crime. I was surrounded by some really mentally ill teens, many of whom had attempted suicide. My 16-year-old roommate needed more than 100 stitches on her wrist to repair the damage she did to herself by slashing up her arm. The company I kept was certainly not helping. The place itself assaulted my sensibilities. During the day, I made birdhouses and sat through innumerable and tedious group therapy sessions, blowing smoke with much ado about nothing. I was trapped. The other mom will always win. I remained in this unspeakable place for many weeks. I hated it, and it changed me. I clung desperately to my only hope, my father. I was sure he didn't know I was in this place, and when he found out, he would quickly get me out. I daydreamed that he would soon discover what Mom had done and come to rescue me. Even if I briefly ended up at this place with the typical old mattress on the floor, one fell on my brother and broke his nose during a sleepover. It would be better than Bethsaida any day. Again, I saw my father as Superman, without the cape. This was the sweetest daydream, knowing that he would take me away from this place. I had many dreams at night about him showing up and banging on Bethesda's bulletproof glass doors, demanding my immediate release. But that train of thought was a delusion. Weeks into my incarceration, my shrunken mother were dissecting me with their blunt anatomical scalpels, babbling about my psychotic and dangerous episodes. I was becoming angry. Why am I here? This place kept pushing, and I wanted to push back. Suddenly, I stood up and blurted out my secret hopes stanchly and with an attitude. You just wait until Dad finds out I'm here. Time slowed down. I can't believe I just said that. I felt so resilient, even heroic. My heart was beating like a rabbit. Now, the thoughtless doctor knew about my father, too. I wanted to laugh. My mother glared at me, and I glared right back. But her mouth slowly formed a crooked smile through tight lips. Why is she smiling like that? My heart pounded faster, and I felt shoved into a corner, but I stood on fearless ground. I tried not to let it show that I had begun to tremble. Who do you think is paying for this, Amber? She snarled back contentedly. Oh my God. I covered my mouth with my hands. I knew she was telling the truth. He would be the only one with the money. My chest ached, and my stomach sank. I pressed my palms together and lowered my head in defeat. I felt totally shattered, helpless, and, worst of all, hopeless. She had won. How could my father believe whatever lie Mom had conjured up and not even bother to speak to me first? My personality began to change, and that infinitesimal piece of hope I had disappeared like a mere wisp of smoke. That was it. Life felt over for me, and I hated him. I started to hate life, descending into the unforgiving gloom around me and finally accepting my fate. Finally, my father's health insurance ran out, and I was precipitously cured with Pollyanna enthusiasm and released with one meaningless doctor's signature. There would be no feeling of relief, however. I wouldn't be home for long, only long enough to pick up my bags. While I was bound by confinement, Mom had some free time to play. She felt like she needed to keep me locked up and away from her because she thought I might steal her new man. She was a couple of months into a new relationship with this guy, at least 20 years her junior. She wanted to get married to him, making him husband number whatever. The relationship was going well in her mind. Only months later, he would be beating and raping her. She certainly didn't want me around. When the insurance ran out, she sent me to live with my father in another state. Great, just who I never wanted to see again in my life. I didn't want to live in Texas, and I didn't want to live with Dad. I felt as though he had stabbed me in the back. But what I wanted didn't matter. I was 16 and was forced to leave my high school and all of my friends. Nanagop's home was ostensibly not an option. Sometimes the family even believed Mom's bizarre fabrications.